So Dr. Stabile, Elizabeth and I want to thank you for joining us today. And in the world that we're living, it seems like everything is done via video anymore. And we really want to take an opportunity to learn a little bit more about your research and have a chance to update those donors who have supported Libby's lungs, which in turn supports the research that you're doing at UPMC Hillman Cancer Center. And so really appreciate you taking time to visit with us today. So the first question I have for you, can you provide just an update on the research concerning women and lung cancer?
Sure. So in my lab, we're taking a multi-pronged approach to understand what can cause lung cancer in women who have never smoked. We're interested in environmental, lifestyle, and hormonal factors that may lead to an increased risk of lung cancer. And we're also interested in why women respond differently than men to certain cancer treatments. So in addition to our preclinical studies in the lab, we are currently identifying a group of non-smokers with lung cancer that have been seen in the UPMC health system and have tumor tissue available for molecular sequencing. We plan to do extensive outreach to this population to learn more about exposure to secondhand tobacco and indoor air pollution by teaming up with our community outreach and engagement leadership. We're also working with our local community organization, the Pittsburgh chapter of the American Association of Radon Scientists and Technologists, to develop a community-based residential radon testing program. Another really important part of this initiative is the incorporation of extensive questionnaires to learn about the patient's hormonal history and quality of life. And most importantly, we can't really do this alone. So we're engaging a team of oncologists, surgeons, scientists such as myself, and data analysts to really dive deep and better understand the cause of lung cancer in female patients without a smoking history, and to identify new potential drug targets for both lung cancer prevention as well as treatment. So we started this initiative because our existing genetic understanding of lung cancer is really based on studies where the majority of patients were smokers. And genome studies of never smokers have typically focused only on already known genetic alterations, such as EGFR or ALK, the alteration that Elizabeth has. But we really are completely blind to other genetic events that may contribute to lung tumor biology and behavior in never smokers. And clearly, not all the important discoveries have been made yet. Additionally, there's very little known about gene-environment interactions that contribute to gender-based differences in lung cancer susceptibility. And we'll be addressing that in our never smoking lung cancer patients. Another new research area that I'm very excited about is image-based and super resolution microscopy strategies, which use features that are invisible to the naked eye on a routine CT scan for the image-based approach, or on routine sputum cytology for the microscopy-based approach. So we're using these techniques to non-invasively determine genetic alterations, early lung cancer detection, metastatic risk, as well as male versus female differences and differences between smokers and non-smokers. For these projects, once again, we're taking a collaborative approach. We're working with a team of radiologists, pulmonologists, and bioengineers. Finally, we continue working on understanding hormonal-induced changes within the lung tumor microenvironment. So that is not just the tumor cells themselves, but other types of cells such as immune cells and normal cells that surround the tumor. We know that estrogen and its metabolites are present in lung tissue. So we're asking, how does estrogen shape the lung immune profile in females during normal physiological processes? And then how can that then contribute to lung cancer risk? So my hope is that our studies will shed light on the reasons why we are finding such an alarming increase in lung cancer rates in young, non-smoking women. And more importantly, how can we prevent this from occurring?
It's very, all of that just makes my heart sing as a female with lung cancer, knowing that there could be others down the road who are either identified early so that they're not stage 4 diagnosis, or potentially an intervention before that even. So it's to me that all of that just makes my heart very happy to know that that is going on. My question for you is, of course, the question of 2020, which is, how has COVID-19 impacted your ability to conduct your research?
So yes, that's a great question, and what a roller coaster of a year 2020 was for all of us. So the research activities at the Hillman Cancer Center had to pivot, just like the rest of the world, from spring into summer, placing COVID-19 research really on the forefront. And the University of Pittsburgh, like other universities across the nation, quickly put in place the necessary protections to allow laboratories and research groups to safely conduct their activities following the CDC guidelines. We were able to continue our research activities, but we had to adapt to a new work environment. For example, we're only allowed a certain number of people per square feet in the lab, while maintaining physical distance. So that means that shift work is often in place. We have to be flexible. Experiments need to be planned around other things in the lab. We plan our schedule day by day. We try to deal with the most critical priorities first. And communication has been really important during this time. So we need to tell each other where we left off at the end of the day in case somebody needs to jump in and take over if a lab member is quarantined due to an exposure or is experiencing COVID symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So the pandemic really led to new ways for us to maintain our scholarly communications in our research collaborations. And oftentimes we would have staff having to work from home. So we adapted. We spent more time analyzing data, writing manuscripts and grant proposals, and brainstorming new ideas. And my calendar, just like yours, I'm sure, became full of Zoom meetings, most days putting in more work hours than we did pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that as a scientist, I work hard because I'm passionate about what I do. I want to help people like you, and I'll figure out a way to make it work, even during the pandemic. So lung cancer didn't stop because of the pandemic, and neither should our research. So we maintained our focus. We came up with creative ways to get our work done, and we rose to the challenge of 2020. We managed to have a productive year with our publications and our grant proposals. And despite this current wave of infections and the seriousness of the current situation, I believe hope is on the horizon, and we can all face this new year knowing that through the power of science, this pandemic will eventually come to an end now that the vaccinations are underway.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. I really want to thank you and your colleagues and everyone, including the frontline healthcare workers who worked tirelessly throughout this pandemic. I mean, Elizabeth probably visited Hillman about a dozen times since the pandemic has taken place. And every time we've been in there, we're really appreciative of the staff that come to work every day and the work that you do from a research standpoint, because people like Elizabeth rely on it. And we are grateful, but we also know that there was probably a lot of trepidation and concern and fear around that. So let us say thank you to you and all of your colleagues. And, speaking of research, our goal through Libby's Lungs is to raise, $100,000 to help support your research efforts. Given the millions of dollars that is dedicated to cancer research, does $100,000 even make an impact for you? And if so, in what way?
Yes, absolutely. Every dollar counts, even more so because many federal funds can't be used for certain expenses, and budget cuts are made every year. Oftentimes this results in not actually having enough of money to do the proposed funded work and maintain the lab. So in addition to conducting the research, it's my responsibility to maintain the lab, to account for my salary, the salaries of the people working in the lab, and of course, unexpected expenses always arise. So things as trivial as broken equipment that needs to be serviced, weigh balances and pipetters that need to be calibrated to ensure accuracy, or a contaminated reagent that needs to be replaced. So I can assure you that we're grateful for each and every dollar that comes into the lab. And I'm especially grateful for private funding and for your vision for Libby's lungs, since, as you know, lung cancer receives much less federal funding and support than other cancer types. So with more private funding for lung cancer research, I believe that we can achieve our goal and have an impact on patient outcomes with this disease. One day, making lung cancer a chronic illness instead of a deadly disease. And we can't do that without your support. That's guaranteed. And that's why this money is just so very important to my research program.
We're so happy that we can be a part of that. You've talked a lot about sort of where you've been and the research that you've done. Talk to us about what you're most excited for as it relates to emerging research in the areas of women and lung cancer.
So I'm very pleased that lung cancer is now actually being recognized as a women's public health issue. This is something that is very recent, and I throughout my career has never really happened. So toxins in the environment, genetic predisposition, interactions with hormones, these all hold clues as to why this disease is occurring more frequently in females who are non-smokers. When I first started in this field at the beginning of my career, many people in the scientific community didn't believe that lung cancer in women is a different disease. They didn't believe that hormones might play a role because the lung isn't considered a reproductive tissue like ovary or breast. And I remember the first high-profile case about 15 years ago. The nation was stunned by the lung cancer diagnosis of Dana Reeve, Superman star Christopher Reeve's wife. A 44-year-old non-smoker just didn't fit the image of a person expected to get lung cancer. So time and time again, I heard the same story. Now, more than a decade later, women like you, Elizabeth, living with lung cancer, have really come together to share your personal stories and let your voices be heard. So the take-home message is, if you have lungs, you can get lung cancer. So fortunately, I think we're on the brink of change, and this is what is most exciting to me, that people now recognize the changing face of lung cancer, which includes women and non-smokers, and we're breaking through the stigma of lung cancer as a smoker's disease. So organizations that make lung cancer in women a priority, such as the Go-To Foundation for Lung Cancer, the Lung Cancer Foundation of America, and Longevity, all foundations that I know that you've been involved with, Elizabeth, have begun to solidify, and they're continuing to grow. So another recent acknowledgement of the growing number of women with lung cancer is the Women in Lung Cancer Research and Preventive Services Act of 2019. This legislation is intended to commission a review to understand the current state of research on lung cancer in women, and should ultimately advance research to address the disparate impact of lung cancer in women. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing about the impact of this legislation over the upcoming years, and the key discoveries from research that has been funded by these various lung cancer foundations that are focusing on non-smoking women with lung cancer. So that's going to be really exciting over the next few years. I think we'll have a lot to look forward to.
I like that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stabile, for taking time to visit with us today and have an opportunity to update our donors. And once again, thank you for all that you and your colleagues do. It is greatly appreciated by everyone.
Thank you also for your time today and for taking time out of your schedules as well. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to everybody that has donated to Libby's Lungs, and it will have a tremendous impact on our success. So Happy New Year to everybody, and please continue to stay safe.
Great. Thank you so much.